So welcome to this edition of Kenmori's Street Brain Radio. Here I'm going to talk about Korea and Japan. Of course, Korea, scientific concept, as well as a philosophical theme of investigation, and that have universal connotations and implications. However, it depends on culture and regional traits. And as a native Japanese, I always feel that the way Japanese people approach Korea is probably different from those that you find in other nations and regions. Of course, the scientific understanding and the philosophical implications of Korea are the same, basically. But Japan is a country of ephemeral values. In spring, we celebrate the cherry blossoms in festivities called Hanami, literally admiring the flowers. And the beauty is in the passing nature of the flowers. They come and go. They last only for a week at most, and their prime is very brief, only a few days. And when there's a sudden wind or rain, it is probably much shorter than that. So the Japanese people are always looking for a news telling us when the cherry blossoms would bloom. There's something that is not found in other cultures. The same goes for food, and Japan is famous for the really delicate variety of food. The epitome of which I think is kaiseki. Kaiseki originally came from the tradition of tea ceremonies, and the idea is that before you serve the tea, actually you serve the tea after you have eaten a course of really wonderful food, that is kaiseki, to the accompaniment of some sake. And the tea is a finishing touch to the sensory pleasure that you get from such a treatment, and everything is attended to the tiniest detail. Of course, it's just a action of drinking a green liquid, if you like, but the Japanese really take it seriously. In fact, the samurai warriors took it so seriously that it is reported, and there's some evidence for that when they won in battles, because it was the name of the game was the samurai warriors to win in a battle, they preferred receiving a prestigious tea bowl to receiving London Castle. Of course, with many of such religions, I think there have been some exaggerations, but it is a historical fact. So Japan is a country where traditionally people attend to the tiniest details of the nuance of Korea that we encounter in our life. So it's quite different from probably a typical culture, although I'm not boasting that here that Japan is a unique, has a vantage point of attending to the details of Korea that we encounter, the spectrum of Korea. But I think it's fair to say, if you listen to what people say in the world today, that Japan has some uniqueness in it. So anyway, because of that, I think when Japanese people hear the sound name word Korea, I think there's some special feelings and special associated memories invoked in their brain. And that's probably why when Mr. Nobuyuki Idei, the CEO of Sony at the time, heard about my research on Korea, he made the decision to kickstart a really top brand called Korea. The idea was that by providing the user with the highest quality of visual experiences and audio experiences and so on, for which Sony was, of course, famous. Probably we can build a new economy But this is something more ubiquitous than that, of course. So what we studied here in this country would be would have relevance to people from all over the world. For example, when it comes to wine tasting, of course, the main functionality of the wine is to provide ethanol. I mean, that's how people get intoxicated. But in addition to that, there are many different elements in it, and probably modern science or future science would not be able to decipher all the elements involved in a crisp and clear way, not for the foreseeable future at the least. So it is quite interesting to observe that in the wine business, differences in Korea would lead to huge differences in market values. So here I'm talking about Chateau Latour and Romane Conti and so on. Of course, some of these market value differences might be explained away by illusions, and people have illusory perceptions about things, and there would be also speculations, so that people buy wine to hold it so that they can expect them to grow in values, and that's actually what some people are doing. But that's probably not the deep core of the wine culture. I mean, at the core of wine, I think there's a genuine appreciation of the quite astonishing variety of Korea that you can encounter, and that is something similar to the traditional Japanese approach to Korea. Of course, Japan has a counterpart in that. The Japanese people have been really sophisticated in deciphering the taste of sake, rice wine, and other drinks. And Japan is now producing really promising lines of craft gins, and this is built on the venerable tradition of Japanese whiskey from places like Santry and Chichibu Distillery, Ichiro's Malt, and all these things. So I think there's a shared sensitivity of really different nuances of Korea all over the world. But if you come to Japan, I think you can find a lot of interesting traditions concerning Korea. For example, some people argue that Japanese craftsmen have traditionally used terms to describe certain qualities of the ware that they're making, and this, in some part, would explain how Japan became a technological marvel. Because if you go to a factory, the craftsmen there would discuss the metallic surface and how they are polished and formed and how they appear in Korea. So I think actually the sensitivity to the differences in Korea might be actually the heart of the excellence that has defined in Japan in modern times. So I've been talking about Japan and Korea, and I actually have been in Shinjuku. So my finishing statement. Korea are ubiquitous, and we all have that. But in some places, people have developed a really sophisticated web of perceptions and descriptions to approach Korea. And by appreciating those cultural heritages, maybe we can go further as humans. So Korea would be a driving engine to postal or transhumanism. So that's this episode of Ken Mogi's Street Brain Radio from Shinjuku, Tokyo, Japan.